I believe that in challenging economic times, that ultimately the question of trust is key, either in terms of corporate culture or political culture, because you have to bring people with you through painful decision making and painful sacrifice often. So that, to my mind, is extremely important. But all of the normal requirements in terms of application, diligence, working hard, etc., I think are there as well, of course. I'm taking them for granted. But I think that inculcating a sense of trust in the community with which you work is the key element to leadership. If you don't have trust, you can't lead. I've had some experience in 3 different areas. First of all, in the political area, as Attorney General of Ireland, and then later in the Commission and in the WTO on the one hand, and then in the business sense, being chairman of BP and Goldman Sachs International, but I was chairman of BP for 13 years during very challenging periods. It seems that one common feature in leadership is a question of style. There are 2 types of leader, it seems to me, and I've come across both. One is a consensual figure who builds a team and works on the basis of consensus within the top management team, trying to lead it, but also being very concerned about consensus. And whilst that may appear to be the obvious leader that one should aspire to be, there is another type of leader, and that is a far more autocratic figure who is decisive, somewhat controlling, and develops in the corporate or political world according to the second model. Now, obviously, those are 2 extremes of a spectrum, and what one should be looking for, I think, is something that marries both. But let us not pretend that there aren't differences between the 2, and that sometimes the leader who is autocratic has in the past been successful in the corporate world and unfortunately successful in the political world. So it's obvious from my answer that I tend towards a belief in the consensual model. And I've seen that most obviously through board membership in Scandinavia, where I was on the board of Ericsson's and ABB and Investor for a number of years, and currently I'm on the board of Allianz in Germany, where this consensual mechanism of leadership, or this consensual method of leadership, I should say, is more apparent. I think that the dynamic of the government in focusing on exports, which and by definition on foreign direct investment into Ireland, is the only way to go. And I think it has been obvious over the course of the last couple of years, when Ireland has begun to recapture its credibility in terms of the financial markets, that the FDI element of the economy is definitely something that can continue to grow. I'm not discounting in any sense the indigenous capacity to develop business, which has been far less successful over the last 20 years than the foreign direct investment element. Nor am I trying to make a party political point, because the same concern for foreign direct investment has been evident in the last government and indeed the governments before it. I think, however, today, because of the fact that I hope on a continuing basis we are beginning to be perceived, if not as a poster child for the recovery of the peripheral states in Europe, at least as one which is going in the right direction, I hope that the marriage of that reality with the potential for investment into Ireland, into an English-speaking, I would hope increasingly well-educated society, is something off which we can grow, and grow pretty rapidly and effectively into the future.